The roulette wheel of WWE pay-per-views, the ever-changing calendar for 2023. We've already talked about things like Day One not existing and the elimination of maybe some of the gimmick pay-per-views. But I want to talk quickly because we mentioned it last week and didn't have enough time because we got so deep in the topic. But the potential of WWE bringing back the King of the Ring. Now, the last pay-per-view King of the Ring was 2002. And since then, they've had, I don't want to say a dozen, but they've had quite a bit of King of the Ring events. And I have to say, they're all garbage and they weren't needing to be there. And if WWE is to bring back the King of the Ring as a pay-per-view, it needs to have the, I guess, not just the importance, but it needs to have all of the things in which would make it a unique King of the Ring. I remember when the King of the Ring in 2002, I think it received one of the lowest buy rates in WWE history, and that's why Vince McMahon, I think, let it go to the wayside. But my theory in that, and in any pay-per-view, whether it be December to Dismember, which got the 90,000 buy rates back in 2006 as well, as that was, a horrible pay-per-view. It's not the name of the pay-per-view. It's mostly what you can do with it. So with like the King of the Ring or maybe that pay-per-view got horrible buy rates because the pay-per-view itself just wasn't.
Or nobody cared about the matches.
Yeah, nobody cared about the matches.
Nobody was invested. That's the thing.
SummerSlam is going to get some bad buy rates if you don't put together some good matches. The only ones I think that are pretty safe are WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I think those are the only two that are safe from bad buy rates in the sense of if we put together a crap card, we're still going to have some people turning in. So
I would say SummerSlam too.
SummerSlam, yeah, I would say I don't necessarily know how safe SummerSlam is. But again, it depends on the venue and the hype you put around it. Similar to like Crown Jewel, they're putting all the hype around Roman Reigns and Logan Paul for the match, and they're putting it in a stadium and they're making it a big deal. Those kind of things do sell it. So if the King of the Ring maybe in 2002 was hyped up as a weekend event where like fans were coming out to Access and meeting wrestlers and it was going to be at a 50,000 seat stadium, that would have probably put up a few, extra buy rates. But I think the buy rates, it's not the King of the Ring concept. It's just the pay-per-view just wasn't what people wanted to buy.
It didn't deliver. That's really and like if you're not gonna build something up the right way, then there's no point in having it.
There's been the same talk about Survivor Series, about how some years Survivor Series has been like a passe idea. But
again, it's all on the builds. That's why we've talked about last week.
It's all on the booker. Yeah.
You literally, the biggest thing that I have a problem with, and we've talked about it last week. Not that WWE is going to take my suggestion card and put it in their suggestion box and pull it out and say, oh, this guy's got a great idea. They should go to a 6 pay-per-view format. Every other month is a pay-per-view. The reason why is it's just like a good pot of those pots that people make their food in. Like I forget the name of it, but it's a crock pot. That's what.
Yes.
So you put something in a crock pot and you let it simmer. You let it cook nice and low and slow, and you let it build up for a little while, a good amount of time. And when you get to that, when you get home and you're ready to eat dinner after a long time of it sitting and marinating and just getting the juices flowing, it's probably going to be delicious. It's the same thing with wrestling. If you can build it, they will come. If you build a storyline, they will come. Wrestling fans, for the most part, they're in general, they're finicky people anyways. Let's be honest. People, they're always on to the next thing. But generally speaking, wrestling fans, they want to get invested into something. They want to invest in some sort of great storyline or storylines. So it doesn't matter if you have the crappiest concept for a pay-per-view. If the matches if there's people who have stock in these matches, they're probably going to buy the show. It doesn't matter how crappy the name is. If the card is good, the storylines going into the pay-per-view have been good, and you want to see the payoff, you're probably going to buy it. So the King of the Ring, that was just a drop of the ball. I've always been in the camp where if you're going to do the King of the Ring, I like it where it's almost like it's like the Final Four in college basketball. You have the winner from each section, each region, each quarter. The winner, so you have a semifinal match, and then the winner of those matches face off in the King of the Ring. Like that's like, and here's the thing.
Well,
That's not the only stuff. So you have
that is essentially how the tournament does work. Yes.
But no, I'm just saying you have to do it that way, but you also have to have matches not only that are building up to this King of the Ring tournament champion, but you also have to have storylines that actually work.
And here's the thing,
and that makes sense.
So here's the thing. Forget the King of the Ring 2002 buy rates. I will tell you what, don't even base the return of the King of the Ring being off of that buy rate, but most importantly, don't base it off of any of these King of the Ring tournaments and the interest behind them, because I can tell you straight up, I've had no interest in any of these recent King of the Rings, and the reason why
no King Corbin or anything like that. No,
I've been interested
in Nakamura.
I've been interested in the storylines of the people kind of being crowned the king when it's all said and done, but the crowning of the king, no interest. And here's why. The same reason why the Royal Rumble is a big deal, because it has two things. One, it is the match itself. It is the night itself. It's the match itself. It all takes place as one unit. There is no 1 through 10 start the match, and then next week on Raw, 10 through 20 continue it, and then the following week on Raw. No, it is one night. Somebody lasting 60 minutes. That's not spread out over 3 weeks. Why is the NCAA tournament, like you say, with the Final Four, why is this cool? Because if you win on Thursday, you don't get to say, well, next year when we fight again. No, you get back out on the court and you play again. It's like 4 games in 4 days, that kind of situation. It's the endurance element. So the King of the Ring only works with the endurance element. And I think you really need to have, for a true King of the Ring pay-per-view to work, and that endurance element to work, is the 4 matches, 8 men in one night. You can have lots of qualifying matches on Raw and SmackDown, that's fine. But at the pay-per-view, you got to have the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the championship all at the same pay-per-view, all in one night, because it's the endurance factor. I don't care if they fight on Monday Night Raw and then win and then advance to the following Monday Night Raw. That's just wrestling. There's 9 hours of wrestling every single week.
Here's the issue with that, though. You're only featuring so many superstars. That's the issue. That's the issue that I'm having. You're kind of boxing in a certain amount of superstars.
Any of the King of the Ring pay-per-views have had those matches, and then have had like the championship match and a tag team championship match.
I get you want to have the bracket, a good portion of the bracket on the pay-per-view, but you still need to have other matches that have no affiliation with the King of the Ring.
I agree.
Just good,
probably like 2 or 3. Yeah,
just good blowout stories, good
between
payouts.
The rounds. You have, quarterfinal 1, 2, 3, 4, tag team championship or whatever.
Yeah, it's like every other
semifinals match, and then then maybe another match, or the King of the Ring finals, and then maybe the pay-per-views main evented by something un-King of the Ring related. But it all has to be in one night. Baron Corbin winning on a Monday night and then advancing to the following Monday night, that's just wrestling. I don't know if you noticed the Usos, they're on TV every single week. There is nothing unique about seeing them on SmackDown and then the following week on SmackDown. What would be unique is seeing them at 8 o'clock, then them wrestle at 9 o'clock, then them wrestle at 10 o'clock. That is unique. That is different. That is why the Royal Rumble is what it is. Seeing Rey Mysterio last in the ring for 60 minutes over 10 episodes of Raw isn't anything. Seeing him last for 60 minutes within 60 minutes in one night, that's something. And the second thing that clearly has to be in there for King of the Ring to work, and when I say this, I want it to work. I want this. It's the opposite of it. It not working in one aspect and it really being interesting in the other. And that is, you got to have something on the line. King Booker, King, all these King Corbin, these are cool and all, but you got to have, and I loved it in that June time slot, or, I know Money in the Bank is around there at this time too, but I love that June time slot. The winner is the #1 contender for SummerSlam. Just like similar to the Royal Rumble. That's how we saw Brock versus Rock at SummerSlam 2002. Obviously Mabel in 1995, whatever, not the greatest, but that's how Mabel became the #1 contender, then. And the difference is, and why that is so important, is because then you are making legitimate people win this. There's a reason. Remember Hacksaw Jim Duggan? He won the Royal Rumble back in 1988, the very first one. Hulk Hogan as champion, won it in back-to-back years. The thing about those, though, is nothing was on the line. And when nothing's on the line, you have King Bookers, and you have King Baron Corbin, and you have King Xavier Woods.
King Nakamura.
There's a with the King of the Ring meaning nothing, you're going to have random winners that don't mean anything. 1999 was a good example that they had Billy Gunn, Mr. Ass win it because the #1 contendership wasn't on the line. The #1 contendership keeps it legitimate.
Speaking of that. Man, Mr. Ass, Daddy Ass, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, he's still going and looking great.
Better parts of 4 decades.
And God bless him. But I will say, though, with the King of the Ring, you're right. You got to have something it's got the higher the stakes, the more eyeballs you get, because
I would have no interest in the Royal Rumble if it meant nothing.
Yeah,
because
just another match.
Then they would have, because if the Royal Rumble meant nothing, we would have winners like Xavier Woods. We'd have winners like Madcap Moss. Why not? Because it means nothing. It's like the things they do sometimes in the Saudi Arabia pay-per-views where they have these random, like the greatest Royal Rumble or these, different battle royals. Yeah, anybody can win because it doesn't mean anything. The reason why it's important when you're down to the Final Four in the Royal Rumble is because you're like, one of these guys is going to get the push. Same with Money in the Bank. One of these guys is going to be in the ring for championship match. And especially with King of the Ring, you're like, this person's going to main event SummerSlam. So even if it's a nobody winning it, that just means it's going to be like Kofi Mania. They're about to do something with it. It's not like Kofi wins it and then Kofi is not even on the SummerSlam card. Like they do with the King of the Rings now.
So I know the video audience caught me yawning there. So like for the audio only audience, I did yawn while we were talking about that really quick. And that's the thing. If there is nothing for me to buy into, there's no high stakes on the line, that's the reaction you're going to get from me. A nice big yawn and says, all right, I'm not going to check this out. Yeah, like for me, how you check the boxes of getting more people to watch or getting more interest is not only you got to build it up, but you also have to have a high reward at the end of the match. If you don't have the high reward at the end of the match, who the hell cares? Why am I watching this then? And I want to see what the next step is.
King of the Ring could very well be a very important pay-per-view on the card. Everybody's been clamoring for it to return since it left. Everyone talks about the return of the King of the Ring, but all of these quote-unquote returns of King of the Ring are not it. Essentially, in my eyes, the King of the Ring died in 2002, and it hasn't been back since, despite all of this other stuff where they've crowned new kings, because it doesn't mean anything. If you killed the Royal Rumble and then brought it back on an episode of SmackDown where it's a 20-man means nothing battle royal, but it's brought out in Royal Rumble style where everyone comes out every 2 minutes, that's not the Royal Rumble. If they've done little Royal Rumbles, I believe, on a Monday Night Raw, I think they did like a little Royal Rumble to determine a number one contender.
It's like a mini battle royal is what it is.
Yeah, it's the why the Royal Rumble is a pay-per-view is because of the stakes. How else could you have a pay-per-view around a battle royal, essentially?
With nothing on the line.
With nothing on the line. It worked in the 80s because it was new and unique and because pay-per-views were not a dime a dozen like they are now. But I think the King of the Ring could easily be back to what it was. It was one of the big 5 pay-per-views back in the day. And what made it a big 5 pay-per-view was the endurance element of, just like the Royal Rumble, is this guy could go from the semifinal or the quarterfinals all the way to champion in one night. This guy could go, just like in the Royal Rumble, from number 1 to champion in one night. You have 8 people and you don't know who's going to be eliminated in the first round. You don't know who's going to last. And obviously there's big stakes at the end.
We need for this King of the Ring concept to actually work, if it came to fruition, is to have a moment like, and it's hard to duplicate because that moment was pretty organic and it's pretty well known as the Stone Cold, the Austin 316, that whole thing. That's where the era of Austin 316 kicked off, was at the King of the Ring. So if we want to get back to old glory, it's hard to duplicate what Stone Cold Steve Austin did then and all the way through his Austin 316 era. But you got to make somebody, because Stone Cold was a made man after that. We got to find somebody.
Yeah, Triple H was supposed to win that. And essentially when you're supposed to win that, why was it such a big thing to take away from him? Because he knew he would have been the main man if he won it, he then won it the next year.
Yeah, it ended up working out for him.
They knew the stakes. They knew the stakes. Even the superstars knew the stakes at the time.
But aren't you glad it worked out the way it did? I am, because it didn't really matter for Triple H. Look where he is now. He's fine. Who would have known what would have happened with Austin 316 at that point? So it actually worked out very well. I think the thing is, you can't put somebody in there I don't feel like that is already established. I think the point of the King of the Ring to me is maybe a guy like Austin Theory, for example. A guy who's like, he's almost there, but he's not there. You get a handful of those competitors that are like almost to that point where like, all right, we can actually believe this guy. I think putting like an AJ Styles or Seth Rollins just doesn't do it any good.
You know what I think, to kind of make it so that we keep these pay-per-views where like there's new reset buttons, like the Royal Rumble is a great reset button that makes a number one contender for WrestleMania. King of the Ring would be a great reset button to make a number one contender for SummerSlam. we all know that Money in the Bank isn't going anywhere. And Money in the Bank is kind of similar to what I'm talking about when I talk about the King of the Ring and how, like, you essentially, get crowned that. That's kind of what Money in the Bank took over. Money in the Bank became a Big Five pay-per-view because of the same idea. It's like 8 or 9 people. One person's getting a huge push tonight. One person's getting that's why Money in the Bank is a pay-per-view. Not because people like ladder matches, but because of the stakes involved. Because of
some people do.
8 people, you don't know which of this group of people is going to be the first gone or which one's going to make it all the way to the end. So I think maybe moving Money in the Bank until like September, post SummerSlam, September, October, so that you have this number 1 contender for WrestleMania. Boom, King of the Ring comes in as your new Money in the Bank spot, where that's also this endurance tournament, number 1 contender for SummerSlam, and then like September, October, Money in the Bank, then that guy wins. And obviously Money in the Bank doesn't have the set for a certain pay-per-view, but the idea is that we're not carrying 2 number 1 contenders at one time kind of thing. We don't have a Money in the Bank winner and a King of the Ring winner.
The only downside is the allure of Money in the Bank is it's a calendar year. So that would kind of take away from it. That's what would happen. It would take away.
Well, you still have the calendar. You win it in like September, and you have
but
essentially.
You would also have 2 number 1s at the King of the Ring for that short time.
Well, that's what get rid of that. That's what King of the Ring's in June, right, where it was before, and that person's the number 1 contender. Goes to face at SummerSlam, and then essentially SummerSlam's over. The next pay-per-view is Money in the Bank.
But
we essentially get a new number 1 contender out of nowhere.
I mean, it's a good concept, but the drawback is then you know when the payout's going to be for the Money in the Bank. You have now the timeline's constricted, so the surprise element could be constricted.
Well, no, you don't have. I mean, when he wins Money in the Bank, obviously they can still make it last a full year. He can catch it the next year's SummerSlam and make it a triple threat with the King of the Ring winner, the whole 9 yards. But at least right from the get-go, he's not also we don't have 2 pay-per-views in a row like the Royal Rumble where we are crowning we're pushing 2 people in back-to-back pay-per-views. That's what I'm getting at. The Royal Rumble pushes a new guy. King of the Ring pushes a new guy. Money in the Bank pushes a new guy. 3 times a year, someone gets a push.
The problem is, though, I don't think WWE values enough superstars to give that many people a push. I think WWE has.
Well, I mean, like the Royal Rumble, you get repeat winners. I mean, you get the Ronda Rouseys winning the Royal Rumble like we did last year. You get the Brock Lesnar's winning the Royal Rumble. I mean, you could have that with any. We had Brock Lesnar win Money in the Bank a few years ago. So like these elements aren't out of the, we don't have to essentially be pushing an Austin Theory at each one of these, but it's just,
I like that because the more stars.
I like it too, but we don't have to make sure it's like a Xavier Woods getting a push, a Kofi Kingston getting a push.
But here's the thing, higher tides raise all ships. You know what I mean? So if you can get somebody like an Austin Theory to that next level, that makes the caliber of your roster that much better. And by the way, just speaking of Austin Theory real quick, glad he's got his 2 names back. But that Seth Rollins match this past Monday night was really good. That was a hell of a match. I mean, Rollins we know is as good as he is, but I don't think Theory gets enough. I don't think it's enough love from the WWE universe because that dude could put on matches. He can make Rollins look good just as much as Rollins makes him look good. The future is bright for Austin Theory, regardless of the Vince McMahon rub that he had before. The kid's so young, he's so talented. It's great that he's working with guys like this caliber of Seth Rollins, AJ Styles of the world, because that's the guy you're going to be looking at in 10 years from now, where he is going to be, if he's not the face of the business or the business as a whole, he's one of the faces, or he's like a pillar. Because you could see, and I'm not trying to fantasy book it, but you could see him potentially facing the likes of an MJF if MJF ever comes, to WWE in 2024. I mean, that's way down the line, but that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of talent Austin Theory is. And I don't know if you saw the match. I don't know if you saw the match on Monday night. That was the match of the night. By far.
So, finishing out the King of the Ring talk, I will say one aspect where I could say we could just have semifinals is if one semifinal, like instead of quarterfinals, because that's in the men's division, is if we had 2 semifinals of Queen of the Ring and King of the Ring in the same night, similar to the Money in the Bank. So 3 semifinals and a final, semifinals and a final. So 6 matches. Either way, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be 6 matches. You know what I mean? 6 or 7 matches. So either way, if you break it down to I want the King of the Ring to be 6 out of the 9 matches for the pay-per-view. They got to mean something. They got to have people that matter. You can't have them. We can't have Madcap Moss. Like Madcap Moss and all, but unless he's about to be the number 1 contender for a champion, I'm not interested in him winning a meaningless tournament. So Triple H,
he's raw.
Bring back
he's
King of the Ring, but you got to bring it back where it means something, because the reason it died and the reason why these other King of the Rings that you've had and Vince McMahon has had have not taken off is because they've been done half-heartedly and have not been done right.
And I got to just put a little, I'm going to add to the Madcap Moss talk. The kid's got talent. He's still very raw. He's still got a lot of work to do, but he's the kind of guy that you could put up there where he just needs a little more seasoning, or he just needs the right manager like a Paul Heyman. And the kid could be real good. I think he really could be really good. He's, to me, every time I see him, I feel like he's getting a little bit better every single time I see him, but he doesn't have it just yet.
Well, maybe by the time the King of the Ring comes, it'll be Madcap Moss and Emma.